Can you tell us a bit about your journey as an author?
Yes, so I basically started as an author when I was very young. So I was about 6 years old when I wrote my first comic. So I started off writing horror comics. And I think a lot of authors start off quite young, writing little bits of stories with pictures here and there. So, and what generally tends to happen is you kind of lose your passion or your interest in it as you go along. But I kept writing all the way through secondary school, but it wasn't until I got to, I'd finished university and I was in a job. I was a solicitor for a little period of time. But I always used to get up before work, write short stories and that kind of thing. And it wasn't until I was in my mid-20s when I got an agent. And then through the agent, I got my first publishing contract. So it was quite a long period of time. And I think I may have got published a little bit earlier if I'd really believed in myself a bit more. But because I came from a kind of very working class background, we didn't have authors that we knew. It seemed like an unachievable ambition. But that's why whenever I go into schools, I always say to the kids there, doesn't matter what background you come from, anyone can be a writer and a published writer. As long as you read a lot and write a lot, anyone can do it.
You might not know this, but our school has been working hard to maintain our gold status in the LGBTQ+ charter, which we proudly achieved last year. What advice would you give schools looking to create truly inclusive environments?
Well, first off, huge congratulations to your school, because that's not easy to achieve and you've done really, really well. And it's always really heartwarming to come into a school, and I've only been here for this afternoon. I can already see how inclusive and compassionate an environment it is for LGBTQ students. I think for other schools who maybe aren't doing as well or aren't as far along the line as you guys are, often you'll find that a school will start its LGBTQ and Allies Club, and then after a year they haven't got many people joining it and they kind of give up and they kind of think, oh well, maybe there's not the demand for it in the school. But really, I was talking to a teacher at another school who runs the club, and they said you have to stick with it for year after year after year until it becomes that horrible word normalized within the school, so that it's not seen as something new or scary. So even if your first couple of years you get hardly anyone coming or one or two people, you just got to really stick with it until it's a proper institution in the school and is seen as something as natural as, chess club or hockey club or anything like that.
Your books often explore themes of identity and belonging. What inspired you to write stories that resonate so strongly with LGBTQ+ young people?
I think it was because I didn't have any of those stories when I was at school. So I grew up under a law called Section 28, which you can look up, and it basically meant that we weren't, when I was at secondary school, we weren't allowed any resources about LGBTQ people, about their lives, even that they existed. And teaching staff and librarians were not even allowed to talk to students about the fact that LGBTQ people existed. So if you see yourself in a book or a TV show represented as a worthwhile human being, then it can encourage people, especially from kind of like maybe more rural or conservative areas, to feel that they are worthwhile human beings too. So representation is really important in books, and so that's my passion, to have LGBTQ characters, three-dimensional characters at the forefront of all of the stories that I write.
What do you think are the biggest challenges LGBT people face today, and how do you think your storytelling can help address these?
I think, unfortunately, today we're seeing quite a bit of pushback against LGBTQ rights from populist and quite far right-wing media outlets and certain big personalities with powerful platforms. And it can feel very overwhelming, especially with social media. It can feel like a tide is really turning against us as a community. But what we've got to remember is that these people are the very small minority of voices raised against LGBTQ rights. They seem disproportionately large because they're amplified by media and social media, but actually they're the fringe minority of opinion. And most people, vast majority of people, either support our rights or they're just like, they're going about their everyday life, they don't really think about it. And it's just a radicalized small group. So I think that our biggest challenge at the moment is from those voices that seem very noisy but belong to very few people, and we have to resist that.
Have you ever faced backlash for the themes in your books? If so, how do you stay motivated to keep writing and advocating?
Yes, you do face backlash sometimes from parents, again a small minority of parents who might go into schools and say to librarians and teachers that these books don't belong in their school. But again, when you actually look at the percentage of those parents compared to all the parents who either have LGBTQ children or have LGBTQ relatives who support us, or those parents who might not have a family member but also are like, we support people's rights just to exist and live their lives. So I think how you combat that is just continuing to write the books, continue going into schools and talking about the issues that we face, and really hopefully fostering that sense of belonging and community with younger people coming up into the community.
If you could give one piece of advice for an LGBT student who's struggling with their identity, what would it be?
Know that you are experiencing feelings that are legitimate and that have been experienced by generation upon generation of people before you. So you're not alone, and there is always help out there. So there will be teachers, or there will be the LGBTQ club in schools, or there are brilliant charities like Stonewall who you can contact for advice if you're feeling lonely. But don't ever feel that you're alone, because you're not, and don't ever think that the feelings that you're expressing are illegitimate, because they've been experienced by generations of LGBTQ people before you. But don't suffer alone. Speak to someone that you feel safe with, whether that's, even if that's people outside your family or even your friend group, or go to your LGBTQ club or group. If there's not one in school, there may be one locally that's run through local councils or youth programs.
And if you could magically bring one of your book characters to life for a day, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think I would like to bring to life Danny, who's a character in my latest book, The Boy I Love, which is a First World War love story, a gay love story set in the trenches. And it's just because I think that he's got such a big personality. He's got a beautiful singing voice, so I'd love to hear him sing some of the songs from the book. And he's just an entertaining personality. And also, he's kind of, he doesn't like bullies. So if you were, if any student or anyone was feeling bullied, Danny would always stand up for them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's brilliant.